Our next speaker is Clyde McQueen, who has served as the President and CEO for the Full Employment Council for 28 years. He came to Kansas City from Austin, Texas, where he served as the first state director of the Texas Training and Employment Development Division. And prior to that, technical program administrator with the Texas Economic Development Commission. Clyde is the immediate past chair of the Economic Development Corporation for the city of Kansas City, past national president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors Workforce Development Council, and serves on the Community Development Advisory Council of the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City. Clyde's entire professional career has been focused on the employment and skill development of unemployed and underemployed youth and adults within our communities, and the creation of jobs to reduce economic displacement. Clyde McQueen, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Full Employment Council. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon. And as you may know, I'm a job guy, but I'm glad not to be at work today to celebrate Martin Luther King. And as you all know, that took a lot of work to get this day designated. A lot of work, a lot of people took off work to protest and lost work because they did. The Full Employment Council has been in existence here in Kansas City for 30 years. And in fact, you can trace its existence back to the very Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, to where it came from. And it was formed when the city of Kansas City, Missouri was attempting to engage its earnings tax as a way to create jobs for Kansas Cities. And then we were pulled out of that organization, and into it was merged all the employment and training programs so that we could service all the unemployed, economically disadvantaged people in the 5-county area. It covers 2,700 square miles of Jackson, Clay, Platte, Cass, and Ray counties. It services rural poor persons with an agricultural economy, urban poor, suburban poor. And as you all know, poverty and unemployment knows no specific location. One of the first things that we saw, I think, is important to note, that employment is a result of a system. It does not happen because of one thing. You can have jobs for people without skills. You can have people without skills and not have jobs. Our challenge is how do we ensure that the system that creates skilled people for the jobs of the 21st century exists in our community for everyone. Irish, Indian, Asian, white, black, Latino, those are the roots not only of our community, plus 120 other immigrant or ethnicities, because Kansas City is the third largest resettlement community in the whole United States. In addition, those first 5 ethnicities are my immediate family, all of whom worked in the dirt, all of whom were unemployed, many of whom had no high school diploma, but the 3 things that equalized it for them was either access to capital to start their own business, or access to education and training, give them a skill to go to work. Without those 2 things available to anyone who wants to pursue their dream of employment through working for someone else in a 21st century economy that has no global borders, where we are competing with companies in Japan and China, where people work for 2 cents a day, or where people are working for less than sub-minimum wage, as well as trying to compete in an area of the global economy where jobs can be shifted through a fax machine. So our challenge is what is it that we have found and what do we need to have in order to do it? The great equalizer that we all know initially started after the World War I and World War II was over, when the GI Bill was formed. And many of our fathers, parents, brothers, and sisters came back from the war and went to school. HBCUs, historical black community universities, were the places where many of my parents got their start. by being able to go to school without having to worry about working a part-time job, without worrying about able to do anything but study. And that's where a bulk of the black middle class and middle classes of all low-income families started. The second aspect of this was that college aid, financial aid, and cost of education was very cheap. I did some research when I went to school 4 years ago. The cost of education was $450 per semester for a state school. For $450, you could eat 7 days a week, 7 o'clock to 6 o'clock every day. Not eat fried chicken, eat fruit, eat free healthy stuff, and you can even take some back to the room. Fast forward now. Just talked to a person the other day, child is in state-supported school, tuition, $15,000 a semester. 450 goes into 15, 150, how many times? It's like about a 40%, 400% increase in the cost of tuition. Second aspect is that many of us who wanted to do a little working on the side. You have a lot of part-time jobs that surrounded all the college universities. Look around those places, and there's people from the community who are working in those particular jobs because there is no good job base for them to pursue. And who are those persons? Those are persons 55 years of age and older, supplementing their SSI. There are persons who, quite frankly, can't work over 20 hours a week because they may have diabetes or a debilitating condition. The third thing that we have to have in a system of that is also the whole concept of transportation to and from work. Kansas City has the 4th largest landmass in the country, 332 square miles for 460,000 people. Our community that we serve has 2,700 square miles, but yet we have no mass transit system. And the more key aspect of getting a job on time is what? Being able to get there, period. Finally, the whole concept of militarism, and I was interested in the question that was asked earlier about who owns the oil. The United States owns the oil. We have now just become the largest oil producer of all because of the concept of fracking. Second thing is the whole concept of militarism. And the one thing that I wish we would adopt when we talk about protecting our country from terrorism and making it secure is the whole no-holds-barred approach to defense spending that we should also adopt when it comes to protecting our own country. I was on a panel with a veteran who told me that said, I like helping people. That's why I got into the military. But I want to help our country as much as we help others. So when we look at what type of system do we need to have, in terms of the things that we need to make sure we can be able to compete in this national economy, first off, we need to restructure education policy in this community. Spring, summer, and fall semesters were organized when we all did farming for a living. That's not the case anymore. So we need to make sure that we give the education when we need it. Whether it's the spring, summer, or fall, we need to educate in between so that people can go to work. People don't mind going to school as long as they know there's a job afterwards. That's the whole motivation for education. Secondly, we have to make financial aid from K through 14, which is not necessarily K through 12. Because most statistics show that poverty and education is directly tied to the 70% of all persons who are at or below the poverty level have not finished high school, have a high school education degree or less. 80% of all persons who are above poverty have that. So if that's the case, then we need to make education and its opportunities possible. Third is child care. When we want to know why young people are walking around the community, latchkey, being a victim for all the violence that exists, the one thing that we need to be sure of is that those young persons are available and able to have good child care so that they, regardless of what neighborhood they live in. Fourth is transportation. We must bring it upon ourselves to push both the federal, city, and our state leaders to make sure we have a good comprehensive system, and we ourselves must make the commitment to know that we need to invest in an infrastructure to ensure that not only us, but our next generations have access to the jobs being created in this community. We must also have school on a year-round basis. We all know that right now research shows that when kids, young people out during the summer, they lose 2 grades in education during their idle time. We must have school to work, so if a young person wants to go to school and go to college at the same time, let them do it. If they want to go to UMKC and Central High School, let them do it. And let the K through 12 system pay for it, which it can do. Finally, we need to make sure, and we talked about this earlier, background checks. Let's understand when background checks started being used after 9/11, but it has been exploited ever since. I know it, I see it every day. Understanding when a person doesn't pass a background check, it's not because they may have committed a murder, but because they have a traffic warrant for an unpaid parking ticket that's now escalated to a criminal offense. And all you have to do is have one ding on that criminal offense, on that background check, you out of luck. Nobody's going to ask the question about what happens, what you need to do. So hopefully, those are some recommendations that we can have to move forward on to the next tier. But most importantly, it takes a system, not a program. Thank you.